I shall forever speak infinite spoken poetry. Tonight's December 31st. Something is about to burst. The clock is crouching, dark and small, like a time bomb in the hall. Hark, it's midnight. Children, dear, duck. Here comes another year. Children aren't happy with nothing to ignore, and what parents were created for. A door is what a dog is perpetually on the wrong side of, to keep your marriage brimming with love in the wedding cup. Whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up. You are only young once, but you can't stay immature indefinitely. Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. Some pains are physical, and some pains are mental, but the one that's both is dental. Life begins at the end of your comfort zone. I have an idea that the phrase weaker sex was coined by some woman to disarm the man she was preparing to overwhelm. The door of a bigoted mind opens outwards, so that the only result of the pressure of facts upon it is too close, it more snugly. Middle age is when you've met so many people that every new person you meet reminds you of someone else. Oh, what a tangled web do parents weave when they think that their children are naive. If you don't want to work, you have to work to earn enough money so that you won't have to work. Middle age is when you're sitting at home on a Saturday night and the telephone rings and you hope it isn't for you. Certainly, there are things in life that money can't buy. But it's very funny. Did you ever try buying them without money? Where there is a monster, there is a miracle. A jolly young fellow from Yamma told an elephant joke to a puma, and now his skeleton lies beneath hot western skies. The puma had no sense of humor. There is only one way to achieve happiness on this terrestrial ball, and that is to have either a clear conscience or none at all. Come live with me and be my love, and we'll all the pleasures prove of a marriage conducted with economy in the 20th century. Anno Danami will live in a dear little walk-up flat with practically room to swing the cat and a potted cactus to give it a hot tier and a bathtub equipped with dark brown water. We'll eat without undue discouragement, food low in cost but high in nourishment, and quaff with pleasure while chatting wittily. The peculiar wine of Little Italy will remind each other it's smart to be thrifty and buy our clothes for something 50. We'll bus for miles and holidays for seas at the Preston matinees, and every Sunday we'll have a lark and take a walk in Central Park. And one of these days, not too remote, you'll probably up and cut my throat. More than a catbird hates a cat, or a criminal hates a clue, or the Axis hates the United States. That's how much I love you. I love you more than a duck can swim, and more than a grapefruit squirts. I love you more than a gin rummy is a bore, and more than a toothache hurts. As a shipwrecked sailor hates the sea, or a juggler hates a shove, or as a hostess detests unexpected guests. That's how much I love you. I love you more than a wasp can sting, and more than the subway jerks. I love you as much as a beggar needs a crutch, and more than a hangnail irks. I swear to you by the stars above and below, if such there be, as the high court loaves perjurious oaths. That's how you're loved by me. Progress is a fine thing, but it's gone on long enough. Parents were invented to make children happy by giving them something to ignore. Either you get eaten by a wolf today, or else the shepherd saves you from the wolf so he can sell you to the butcher tomorrow. family is a unit composed not only of children but of men, women, and on occasional animal and the common cold. Behold, when grandparents enter the door, discipline flies out the window. People who have what they want are fond of telling people who haven't what they want that they really don't want it. I give you now Professor Twist, the Constantius scientist. Trustees exclaimed. He never bungles, and set him off to distant jungles, camped on a tropic riverside. One day he missed his lovely bride, she said. The guide informed him later. Been eaten by an alligator. Professor Twist cannot but smile. You mean he said a crocodile? Parsley is ghastly if called by a panther. Don't answer. I dreamt that my hair was kempt. Then I dreamt that my true love unkempt it. Higgledy, my black hen, she lay eggs for gentlemen. Gentlemen come every day to count what my black hen doth lay. If perchance she lays too many, they find my hen a pretty penny. If perchance she fails to lay, the gentleman a bonus pay. Mumbledly, pumbledly, my red cow, she's cooperating now. At first she didn't understand that milk production must be planned. She didn't understand at first. She either had to plan or burst. But now the government reports she's given pints instead of quarts. Fiddle dee. My next door neighbors, they're giggling at their labors. First they plant a tiny seed, then they water, then they weed, then they hoe and prune and lop. They raise a record corp, then they laugh their sides asunder and plow the whole cabodal under. Abracadabra, thus we learn, the more you create, the less you earn. The less you earn, the more you're given. The less you lead, the more you're driven. The more destroyed, the more they feed. The more you pay, the more they need. The more you earn, the less you keep. And now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to take. If the tax collector hasn't gotten it before I wake. The trouble with a kitten is that it eventually becomes a cat. The cow is of the bovine ilk. One end is moo, the other milk. Too clever is dumb. The bed is a bundle of paradoxes. We go to it with reluctance, yet we quit it with regret. We make up our minds every night to leave it early, but we make up our bodies every morning to keep it late. Remorse is a violent dyspepsia of the mind, but it is very difficult to treat because it cannot even be defined, because everything is not gold that glisters, and everything is not a tear that glistens, and one man's remorse is another man's reminiscence. Snow is all right while it is snowing. It is like an inebriation because it is very pleasing when it is coming, but very unpleasing when it is going. If some confectioners were willing to let the shape announce the filling, we'd encounter fewer assorted chocks bitten into a returned to the box. Love is a word that is constantly heard. Hate is a word that is not. Love, I am told, is more precious than gold. Love, I read, is hot, tater tot. But hate is the verb that to me is so superb, and love, but a drug on the mark. And any kitty in school can love like a fool, but hating, my boy, is an art. Sure, deck your lower limb and pants, yours are the limbs. My sweet, and you look divine as you advance. Have you seen yourself retreating? He who has never tasted a jail lives well within the legal pale, while he who served a heavy sentence renews the racket and not repentance. Elephants are useful friends. They have handles at both ends. He drinks because she scolds. He thinks she scolds because he drinks, and neither will admit that's true. What's true? That he's a suit and she's a shrew. My fellow man, I do not care for. I often ask me, what's he there for? The only answer I can find is reproduction of its kind, because people can't concentrate properly on blowing other people to pieces if their minds are poisoned by thoughts suitable to the 25th of December. Man is a victim of hope, and the incurable form of hope. People who work sitting down get paid more than people who work standing up. To keep your marriage brimming with love in the loving cup. Whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up. Sensing begins and middle age ends. The day your descendants outnumber your friends. You can have my jellyfish. I am not sellyfish. Do you think my mind is mature and late, or simply rotted early? At least when I get on the Boston train, I have a good chance of landing in the South Station and not in that part of the daily press which is reserved for victims of aviation, the Bronx, no Fonks, no Francs, a donks. There's nothing that keeps its youth so far as I know but a tree and the truth. One kind of person when catching a train always wants to allow an hour to cover the 10-block trip to the terminus, and the other kind looks at them as if they were verminous, and the second kind says that 5 minutes is plenty and will even leave 1 minute over for buying the tickets, and the first kind looks at them as if they had cerebral rickets, and one kind, when Theodore Bound sups lightly at 6 and hastens off to the play. And indeed I know one such person who is so such that it frequently arrives in time for the last act of the matinee, and the other kind sits down at 8 to a meal that is positively sumptuous, observing cynically that an 8:30 curtain never rises till 8:40 on observation, which is less cynical than bounteous, and what the first kind sitting uncomfortably in the waiting room while the train is made up in the yards can never understand is the injustice of the second kind's reaching their scap just as the train moves out, just as they have planned, and what the second kind cannot understand as they stumble over the first kind's heel, just as the footlights flash on at last, is that the first kind doesn't feel the least a bit foolish at having entered the theater before the cast. Oh, the first kind always wants to start, and now and the second kind always wants to tarry, which wouldn't make any difference except that each other is what they always marry. Everybody who has a baby thinks everybody who has a baby ought to have a baby, which accounts for the success of such plays as The Irish Rose of Abbey. The idea apparently being that just by being fruitful, you are doing something beautiful, which, if it is true, means that the common housefly is several million times more beautiful than me or you. How do I feel today? I feel as unfit as an unfiddle, and it is the result of a certain turbulence in the mind and an uncertain burbulence in the middle. What was it anyway? What that angry thing that flew at me? I am unused to banshees crying boo at me. Your wife can't be a banshee, or can she? Professional men, they have no cares. Whatever happens, they get theirs. How easy for those who do not bulge to not overindulge. There are people who are very resourceful at being remorseful, and who apparently feel that the best way to make friends is to do something terrible and then make amends. Hark to the sky of a seagull. He cries because he's not an eagle. Or what if you were, you silly he-gull? What would you say to your she-gull? Unwilling Miranda wakes, feels the sun with terror. One unwilling step she takes shudder into the mirror. Miranda and Miranda's sight is old and gray and dirty. 29 she was last night. This morning she is 30, shining like the morning star, like the twilight shining, haunted by a calendar Miranda is pinning. Silly silver girl, draw the mirror toward you. Time who makes years to twirl, adorned as he adored you. Time is timeless for you, calendars for the human. What's a year? 32 loveliness made woman. Oh, night will not see 30 again. Yet soft her wing. Miranda, pick up your glass and tell me then how old is spring, Miranda? Such and as near conceived by mortals, but bred by scientists wise and hoary in some Olympian laboratory. Bacteria as large as mice with feet of fire and heads of ice, who never interrupt for slumber their stomping. Elephantine, rumba, marriage is the brilliance of two people, one of whom never remembers birthdays and the other who never forgets them. Consider the elk becoming extinct before he forgot how to fly and could only walk. Consider man, who may well become extinct because he forgot how to walk and learn to fly before he thinked. I cannot eat a kangaroo, but many fine Australians do. Those with cookbooks as well as boomerangs prefer him and tasty kangaroo marinades. Philo Vance needs a kick in the pants. There is one thing that ought to be taught in all colleges, which is that people ought to be taught not to go around always making apologies. I don't mean the kind of apologies people make when they run over you or borrow $5 or step on your feet, because I think that is sort of sweet. No, I object to one kind of apology alone, which is when people spend their time and yours apologizing for everything they own. You go to their house for a meal and they apologize because the anchovies aren't caviar or the partridge is veal. They apologize privately for the crudeness of the other guests, and they apologize publicly for their wife's housekeeping or their husband's jests. If they give you a book by Dickens, they apologize because it isn't by Scott. And if they take you to the theater, they apologize for the act and the dialogue and the plot. They contain more milk of human kindness than the most capacious diary can. But if you are from out of town, they apologize for everything local. And if you are a foreigner, they apologize for everything American. I dread these apologizers, even as I am depicting them. I shudder as I think of the hours that must be spent in contradicting them, because you are very rude if you let them emerge from an argument victorious. And when they say something of theirs is awful, it is your duty to convince them politely that is magnificent and glorious. And what particularly bores me with them is that half the time you have to politely contradict them when you rudely agree with them. So I think there is one rule of every host, and hosts ought to keep with the comb and nail file and bicarbonate and aromatic spirits on a handy shelf, which is don't spoil the denouement by telling the guest everything is terrible, but let them have the thrill of finding it out for themselves. Infinite poems on the shelf. One thing the literature would be greatly the better for would be a more restricted employment by authors of simile and metaphor, authors of all races, be that they Greeks, Romans, Teutons, or Celts. I can't seem just to say that anything is the thing is, but have to go out or their way to say that it is like something else. What foes it mean when we are told that the Assyrian came down like a wolf on the fold? In the first place, George Gordon Byron had enough experience to know that it probably wasn't just one Assyrian, it was a lot of Assyrians. However, as too many arguments are apt to induce apoplexy, and thus hinder longevity, well, let it pass as one Assyrian for the sake of brevity. And now then, this particular Assyrian, the one whose cohorts were gleaming in purple and gold. Just what does the poet mean when he says he came down like a wolf on the fold, and heaven and earth more than dreamed than our philosophy? There are a great many things, but I don't imagine that among them there is a wolf with purple and gold cohorts, or purple and gold anythings. No, Lord Byron, before I'll believe that this Assyrian was actually like a wolf, I must have some kind of proof. Did he run on all fours, and did he have a hairy tail and a big red mouth and big white teeth? And did he say woof woof? Bah, 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 bah? Frankly, I think it's very unlikely. All you were entitled to say at the very most was that the Assyrian cohorts came down like a lot of Assyrian cohorts about to destroy the Hebrew host. But that wasn't fancy enough for Lord Byron. Oh dear me, no. He had to invent a lot of figures of speech and then interpolate them with the result that whenever you mention Old Testament soldiers to people, they say, oh yes, they're the ones that a lot of wolves dressed up in gold and purple ate them. That's the kind of thing that's being done all the time by poets from Homer to Tennyson. They're always comparing ladies to lilies and veal to venison, and they always say things like that. The snow is a white blanket after a winter storm. Oh, it is it? All right, then you'll sleep under a 6-inch blanket of snow, and I'll sleep under a half-inch blanket of unpoetical blanket material, and we'll see which one keeps warm. And after that, maybe you'll begin to comprehend dimly what I mean by too much metaphor and simile. You can be young only once, but you can be immature forever. Indeed, everybody wants to be a wow, but nobody wants to be a how. Some people think they will eventually wear diamonds instead of rhinestones, only by everlastingly keeping their noses to a grindstones. Progress might have been all right once, but it has gone on too long. The trouble with a cat is that it eventually becomes a cat, were it not for frustration and humiliation. I suppose the human race would get ideas about its station. It's my own dream. I dream it. I dreamt it. That's my hair was kempt. Then I dreamt my true love unkempt it. Oh, money, money, money. I'm not necessarily one of those who think thee holy, but I often stop to wonder how they can't go out so fast when thou comest so slowly. My garden will never make me famous. I'm a horticultural ignoramus. I can't tell a stream bean from a soybean, or even a girl bean from a boy bean. Bugs Adam had 'em. I would not engage the wombat in any form of mortal combat. Home is heaven, and orgies are vile, but you need an orgy once in a while. In the world of mules, there are no rules. I am a conscientious man. When I throw rocks at seagulls, I leave no turn unstoned. I believe that people believe what they believe. Very like a whale, where there is a monster, there is a miracle. The grackle, the progress might have been all right once, but it has gone on far too long. I find it very hard to be fair-minded about people who go around being air-minded. Cuckoos lead bohemian lives. They fail as husbands and as wives. Therefore, they cynically disparage everybody else's marriage. I am tarred and feathered with time. I like the duck-billed platypus because it is anomalous. I like the way it raises its family, partly birdly, partly mammally. I like its independent attitude. Let no one it called a duck-billed platitude. My life with joy is sometimes fraught, but mostly when I'm doing naught. Yeah, I could spend my whole career a pillow underneath my ear. How wise was he who wittily said that there is something, nothing like a bed. A mattress is what I like to creep on. The right side is the one I sleep on. Stalin and Hitler, while they sleep, are harmless as a baby sheep. Tyrants who cause the earth to quake are only dangerous when awake. This world would be a happier place and happier the human race, and all our pilots be less ponitus if people spent more time unconscious. To keep your marriage brimming with love in the loving cup. Whenever you're wrong, admit it. Whenever you're right, shut up. But people expect old men to die. They do not really mourn old men. Old men are different. People look at them with eyes that wonder when people watch with unshocked eyes. But the old men know when an old man dies. Rhyme after rhyme, all day and all night, night to night. Even I'll hail the light, light, the light.